tell you guys a story. You're going to hear this story, Kelly. About 3 years ago, it was 3 years ago, we did our own camp down in Tampa, a place called Idlewild Baptist Church, where I used to work as the middle school pastor. We did our own camp down there. We go to this huge lake out in the middle of nowhere in Florida. So we go to this huge lake. There's this, Lake Placid Camping Conference Center there. And it was really a cool place to go to. It was like totally campish type place. Like there were bugs and stuff in your sleeping quarters and things like that. You had to like stomp them and squish them and spray around the area before you got in there and slept. And you never knew what crawled in your sleeping bag and slept with you at night, like a raccoon. So, really awesome place. That never happened, but my kids were always afraid of that. 6th through 8th graders. So, we're hanging out one day, and my big thing, I was the director of the camp. Everyone did whatever I asked them to do, which is a really awesome thing, which meant that I could do whatever I wanted to. My choice of things to do was to drive the boat around all week, because it was a huge lake, a vast lake, and we brought 3 or 4 boats down there, which we would take our 250 middle schoolers around on throughout the week. We take them tubing and stuff, and they fall off, have a good time, 20 minutes in the lake, and that was made their world. Well, I remember one particular day, the day before it had been a torrential downpour. I mean, a colossal rainstorm. In fact, it got so crazy bad that we decided to go ahead and make a bunch of those slip and slides. We had some soap, we had tons of soap for some reason. We had long tarps, and we put them on this hill, and we just slipped and slide the entire time while it was lightning and thundering and raining all around us. Parents didn't know until we got home, but it was a lot of fun, all right? Anyway, so the next day comes around, and we think there's a reprieve. Right? We think, okay, there's not going to be any rain today. We'll take the boats out. We'll have a great time. Well, we get out there on the water, and I'm driving this boat around. It's kind of a low rider in the water anyways. Very low rider. Whenever there was a big wave, you'd have some of the water come crashing over the side, and the kids would all freak out. We're going to sink. And they weren't really going to sink. There was some water, We bailed it back out, everything else, okay? So, anyway, so we're tooling around. And I had a group of 6th grade boys with me. Any 6th grade boys in here? Do I have to raise my hand? All right, we had a group of 6th grade boys in here. All right, nothing wrong with that. I like 6th grade boys. I love J-hires. J-hires are awesome. They'll do whatever you ask. There are no pretenses. They're uninhibited. They don't know that they're not cool yet, so they'll do whatever. I love that. I love that about them. So I hung out with J-hires all the time and loved it. Well, I had a group of 6th grade boys with me. I had 9 of them. And it worked out because we'd put 3 back on 2 of the rafts that were back there, 3 or 4. And then, the other 5 of them would be in the boat with me, and we'd tool around, do all of our stuff. Well, 6th grade boys, they have a hard time getting up on the rafts when they fall off. An impossibly hard time getting up on the rafts when they fall off. And it began to drive me up the wall. Because what should have taken 20 minutes with them was beginning to take 40 minutes. Because what would happen is, I'd start driving, they'd be on there, they'd be all safe, and all of a sudden one of them, would fall off, and the other one would turn around and laugh, and then he'd fall off. And then they'd be back there, I'd be like, okay. And that was after 1 second of driving. So I'd turn the boat around. First time it was funny. It was I got them off already. Turned the boat around, went back there, and they couldn't get back. They weren't tall enough to get back on the raft. So what I had to do is I had to stop the boat, dive into the water, go over there, get up on the raft, pull them up on the raft by their life jackets, dive back in the water, get back up in the boat, and drive again. Okay? I had one adult with me, and then I had another college kid who was about worthless. So we're on there hanging out in this boat, and we go again. And sure enough, after 10 seconds, they're off. I mean, they're in the middle of the wake. They didn't go outside the wake where they get like that. They're in the middle of the wake in a very safe place. I told them not to go outside the wake. And I went in a straight line, and they fell off. So I circle back around, go pick them up, do the exact same thing again because they couldn't do it. The adult that was with me, didn't know how to swim very well. So he was like, well, I'm not going to go all the way out there. So I had to dive in and go get all this stuff. The college kid was too stupid to figure out how to get the kids on the raft, so I couldn't bring them out there. It was just a really bad situation, all right? So anyways, all of a sudden, off in the distance, I see this colossal storm coming. I mean, the clouds were billowing, these dark, dirty clouds that we saw some of around Houston today, but even more mean and more ferocious than that. These things were legitimately big cells of thunderstorms. And I began to think to myself, okay, hit and miss storms all day today, weather people wrong, it's a great job to get. You can be wrong 60% of the time, and people watch you anyways, and they love you, guys, if you like to be wrong. Anyway, so they were all wrong, storms everywhere. This one popped up, it'll go away. Well, one of the kids fell off when I'm driving. I said, I don't care. All right, I'm going to keep going. The rest of us going to have a good time. And then all of a sudden, about 200 yards away from him, two of the other kids fall off. So now I've got one kid on the raft, on two rafts. I'm still going. The one raft is flying around up in the air like this, doing all this number, and then it comes down, slaps down next to the guy, and he's scared, and then it flies back up in the air again because I'm doing a turn. The waves are all coming up. The waves are beginning to form like little white caps, like on a big open lake. So it's getting a little dirty out there. Well, the kid that's like 200 yards away, I'm just like, he's like, help! I'm like, I'll get you later, So I stop, I turn around, and come back to these guys. Well, these guys again are having a hard time getting back up on the boat, driving me up a wall. I dive back out there. All of a sudden, like while I'm swimming out to that, I look to my right, and like that storm is a lot closer. It's a lot closer. In fact, it's so close that it's probably within 300 or 400 yards of the student that's out there. And I see a wall, a sheet of rain coming across the lake. I see waves bobbing up and down, and I can only see his head when the waves bob back down. And it goes down, and all I see is like an open mouth, like, And like this guy is absolutely petrified. And it was funny at first, but when I saw the huge storm and the lightning behind it, this kid's freaking out everywhere. Well, I go, I go back there, I get up on the raft, I pull the kids up on the raft, I go back up to the boat, I get in the boat, and guess what? One of them falls off. I'm just there's like primordial screams that I just want to scream and yell and do all sorts of mean things towards these kids, but I can't because they're what? They're sixth grade boys, They don't know any better, Mama still picks out the underwear, all right? So, you're like, Spider-Man today? Are we gonna be He-Man? What are we gonna do, Superman? That's what Michael Middleton wears. Anyways, you can bank on that. Anyway, so I get back out there, one of them falls off, and I'm telling the kid how to pull him back on. Well, the sixth grader surprisingly pulls him back on. He pulls him back on the raft. I'm very proud of him. And at that point, I decide I'm gonna start the boat because I need to go back over there and get the kid. Well, if you know anything about boats, what's the thing you gotta make sure and be aware of when you're tubing and you're pulling people and then the boat's been stopped for a while and then you turn the boat back on? What do you gotta be aware of? The rope! Hey, you guys are brilliant. I wasn't, all right? So I start it, I put it in gear and go. We go like 2 feet and go, and it stops. The boat stops. So right now what I have immediately is I have a kid 200 yards away with a storm approaching at 200 yards away from him, screaming, yelling, confessing sins to God that I've never heard of before. He's a missionary in Uganda now, type thing, right? And I've got two kids back there who hear him crying now, and they begin to cry back there. I've also got the other kid on the raft who's like, what is going on? This is cool. He was like a cool sixth grade boy. He's like, this is awesome. A story to tell my parents. I almost died on a boat with my pastor. So who tells that story? That's a great story to tell. And then the kids in the boat are getting very worried because the waves are bigger now and it's beginning to slosh water inside of our lowrider boat. So like there's all these perfect storms. And I'm like, great! And I stop, I yell for about 5 seconds, and I regather myself and I think about the situation. Meanwhile, Richard Gibney, who was a great youth leader of mine, an adult, decided, hey, Andrew, I'm gonna go down underneath the boat, I'm gonna wear a life jacket, I'm gonna reach my hand up underneath the boat and try and get the rope loose. Great idea, Richard. Okay, so Richard goes down underneath the boat and he's tooling around down there for a little while. All of a sudden, I'm up there just like tripping out, worried about the kid, yelling at them, shut up, we're gonna get you! Stay alive! Type things like that, like encouraging them, you're gonna be okay! I'm thinking, if they're not okay, what am I gonna tell their parents? There's a whale in the lake, they ate them, whatever. They're not going to believe that, so like, what do I tell them? And all of a sudden, I turn around and Richard Gibney's standing behind me in the boat with like his hands down. I'm like, Richard, did you get the rope? Nope. Well, what are you doing up here? Type thing. And he holds his finger up. Dude has a gash in his finger from the propeller that cut his finger open, and you can see his bone right there. It's just, yes. And the guy's a computer analyst, so he works at computers. So he's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I can't work now. I've got a cut on my finger. And I'm like, use the other 9 fingers. We gotta get that kid. So like his bones showing, blood is coming everywhere. Kids confessing sin. 2 are back there crying. The one thinks it's cool. And the 3 other ones in the boat are like, what is going on here? We're all confused. So all of a sudden, like we are floating away. And I'm not lying to you, this wall of water gets about 100 yards away from this kid, and Richard gets the great idea, hey, we need to send someone out there on a raft to get him because our boat doesn't work. He at least needs to be on the boat with us because he's petrified, He's gonna be going into shock. I'm like, well, I'm not going to get him, I've got to stay with the boat, and then you've got this other college kid who's like, I'll go, like, Great, you're good for something. Get on the raft.